What is up, guys? My name is Fran and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about Apple's move over to ARM processors. Alright, so if I can be honest with you guys, I didn't plan on making a video on WWDC 2020 or Apple moving over to ARM at all. In fact, I actually thought this whole Apple move to ARM was a complete rumor and that there was no truth to it. But after watching WWDC and watching Tim Cook's announcement and a bunch of the information coming out about the CPU itself and its architecture, I was just compelled to go ahead and make a video. But with that in mind, this will simply be just a talking head video, no pretty B-roll or anything like that, so feel free to go into audio only mode. So today, June 22nd, 2020 at Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference 2020, I think Tim Cook actually put it best when they said that Apple would be making history as they announced their switch over from Intel processors over to ARM-based processors. Now this was a huge move from Apple, just as big as their initial move over from IBM PowerPC processors to Intel processors back in the early 2000s. But what does this move over to ARM truly mean for the Apple Mac ecosystem? Well, to answer that question, we're going to have a better understanding of what ARM SoCs or ASICs actually are and how they differentiate from traditional x86 processors. So if you're not familiar with ARM processors or SoCs, don't feel bad because neither am I. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert at them either here in this video. I'm pretty sure the comment section will correct me real fast. But what I can do is relay some of the information that I've compiled from my years of experience working with ARM processors and also a couple of quick Google searches. So as you're probably aware, most modern devices have some sort of centralized processor in them. So your common laptop or desktop computer has traditionally always ran a processor from either Intel or AMD that ran on the x86 microarchitecture. While other devices such as smartphones, tablets, Raspberry Pis, Apple TVs, those types of lower power devices have for the last couple of years ran on processors made by a company called ARM, which ran on the ARM microarchitecture. Hey guys, Editor Fran here, popping in to try to help myself out. So in this part of the video, I don't think I properly explained what an SoC is, so I'll try to do that now. So SoC actually stands for System on a Chip. Now in a more traditional computer, you have all of your components, such as your processor, your graphics card, your wireless card, all plugged into your motherboard being controlled by your chipset. However, in an ARM SoC, you actually have all those components sitting on a single die. And now that I have probably completely botched the explanation between these two microprocessors, the one thing that I can tell you that is a complete fact is an application that runs natively on an x86 processor, like an Intel processor, will not run natively on an ARM processor, at least without a little bit of help. But we will get into that a little bit later in this video. But if Apple's massive catalog of compatible macOS applications will no longer work natively on ARM processors, why would Apple actually decide to make this crazy switch? Well, there's a couple of really good reasons. By the way, these are all just my own personal opinions. Alright, so Apple has actually been making ARM devices for a number of years, most notably the iPhone and the iPad. Now, according to Apple, the current generation iPhone and iPad is somewhere in the neighborhood of around 1,000 times faster than the first generation. That's a significant improvement versus Intel's very small IPC or instruction per clock improvements that they make over generation. And despite the significant performance improvement that Apple's been actually able to accomplish over these last couple of years, one thing you'll notice that hasn't changed about the iPhone and the iPad is the fact that they're still only passively cooled, meaning you won't find any type of fans or big heat sinks sticking out the back of either one of these devices. Alright, so what I was attempting to convey in this part of the video is over the last couple of years, we have seen significant performance improvements in more traditional x86 processors, however that generally seems to come at the cost of higher power consumption, which then results in higher heat dissipation. When you have a processor that gets really hot, you're going to need more unique cooling solutions such as liquid coolers, or you'll just end up with something like my 6-inch laptop, which sounds like a jet engine every time it's rendering a video. Now what I believe Apple will be able to accomplish with their own custom ARM-based silicon is they'll be able to meet and possibly even exceed the performance of a more traditional x86 processor, at least in their macOS operating system, and they'll be able to do this without the massive amounts of power consumption that results in high heat dissipation, which makes for a loud computer. And then there is the flip side of things, and that is simply going to be compatibility. As I mentioned earlier, these two different types of processors speak different languages, meaning you won't be able to run your massive catalog of x86 applications on your ARM processor, at least without some sort of aid. And Apple has seemed to prepare for just that. So they've implemented two things, it seems like. Number one is going to be virtualization. They didn't give too many details about that, at least in the keynote, but it does seem like they are going to be leaning towards virtualization for some applications. And then they're going for Rosetta 2.0. Now Now, Rosetta is something that we actually saw in the original transition from IBM PowerPC over to Intel processors, and back then it was a little bit of a nightmare, but let's hope this time around Apple's actually got it down pat. And just to expand a little bit more on the compatibility side of things, outside of Apple coming out with Rosetta 2, which should be much better than Rosetta 1, Apple's also coming out with the new version of Xcode, which now supports universal code. Basically, you could be developing an application for x86 and at the same time be developing for Apple Silicon. You know, overall, I think Apple's move over to ARM-based silicon is going to be pretty interesting. I really think it's going to turn the entire industry over on its head. There's a number of concerns that I do have. Obviously, there's going to be compatibility. This whole Rosetta thing, we've seen it before. It didn't necessarily work as well as Apple wanted it to. I think the universal code stuff is going to be much better, but there's probably still going to be some issues that we're going to run into. One of the biggest things that I see, or one of the biggest flaws that I feel like there's going to be, is definitely going to be around the Windows compatibility. There's going to be people like me who do like to run both Windows and Mac OS on their Macintosh computer, and I really love having that freedom. And taking away an Intel processor is going to definitely hinder that. I know Apple said they do have plans to continue to pump out Intel-based Macs, but I don't know for how much longer. I mean, they said it's going to be a 2-year transition, but is that going to be a 2-year transition with both Intel and these ARM processors, or is it going to be just the ARM processors after the next 2 years? And that's something that I'm really worried about. I mean, I do know that there is ARM versions of Windows 10, and that's something that I would be able to run, but I think overall having that native x86 capabilities is just something that I don't want to give up. But either way, I'm pretty excited for what the future holds, as we might be truly looking at a historical moment in technology history. But that is going to wrap this video up. As always, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, or maybe you want to school me on x86 and ARM processors, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. Also, while you guys are down there, if you like this video, hit the like button. And if it's your first time to the channel, consider subscribing. Once again, guys, my name is Fran. Thanks for checking out this video. I'll see you guys in my next one.